Speed Winter Cup. Of course, this is Gran Turismo 7 live here at the Nürburgring GP Strecke. Of course, the home of GP racing here at the Nordschleife. I'm Jamie Jessica Martin, your commentator tonight. Of course, race direction by Sophia Romwin and the broadcast director for tonight, Mike Yao of AKE Sports. So, of course, we want to talk about some of the excitement that we've had so far. We didn't have iRacing yesterday, the first in a double weekend set of weekend doubles for Screen to Speed. But of course, we get some racing here tonight on Gran Turismo 7. We'll talk ultimately about what to expect from this race, but of course, a bit about the track. It is 15 corners, of course, built 5.2 kilometers long. It was built in 82-83 in place of the existing pit lane that existed for the bigger brothers, the Nordschleife and the Südschleife, and has played host to pretty much every major sport under the sun. So to start off with, we look at the facts. We'll go through some of those details, but ultimately we'll start off with the fact that of the championship so far, TBS Girl 21 is leading the way at the moment after a first place and fourth place in the first two rounds. Sean Mickelson's FR Girl Sean is in P2 at the moment with 81. Gears of Grona currently after winning split 2 of race 1 and of course race 2 and getting onto the podium in race 2 is up on 69 points. Sarah Hawkey with 68. Carl Oliveira in P5. Tano Kitas in P6. Sharon Fly in P7. Mariah Light in P8. Just Hun in P9 and Girl Cold wrapping out the top 10 in 10th. Moving on to the next section here, Asher Silva is currently leading the way in P11 with Tulipix, last week's winner at Monza in P12, Shara PT in 13th, Purple Labras in P14th, Sandrita in P15, Kristen Bach in P16, Annalise Wright in P17, Ellie Lammers in P18, Zoe in P19 and Ellie in P20. So we'll go, of course, to a hot lap at the moment. So we'll talk a little bit about the track, and of course, we'll talk about specifically a lap of the circuit. Of course, we're coming here down the pit straight, which I mentioned was built upon in 82-83, was built upon the track. Wait to see what we're doing. Apologies about some of the issues that we're having. We'll come back and do a watch through lap a bit shortly. Of course, if you want to show who you're supporting in the Twitch and YouTube chats, you can do so by making sure you shout out your favorite driver or who you're supporting for these races. Of course, talking about the actual series itself and talking about this track. It has been the home of pretty much everything so far under the sun, specifically Formula One in this case. Formula One, which, of course, has been around and hosted the German Grand Prix from about 1954. And then at that point, it kind of alternated with a different selection of identities over the years. And it continued to do so consistently between 84 and 2006, where it jostled between the German and European Grand Prix. On top of that, of course, it then alternated until from 2006 to 2015 with, of course, the Hockenheim Ring elsewhere in Germany, another incredible German circuit with a brilliant pedigree. And, of course, it disappeared off the map of Formula One until the Eiffel Grand Prix in 2020, where, of course, it was subbed in as one of the chosen circuits during a time that was a bit of an interesting thing for everyone across the world. But, of course, it also has hosted a Luxembourg Grand Prix, if you didn't know that, in 1997-1998, as it is ultimately 80 kilometers away from the border of Luxembourg. So, interesting little factoid there. Other events, of course, DTM from 2000 to now. It also hosted the GT World Challenge for periods of time between 2014 and 2016, 2019 and 2021, and now from 2020 to 2023. Of course, it was formerly the Bachmann GP and Endurance Series. Of course, outside of that, the World Endurance Championship had a 6-hour race here for a couple of years between 2015 and 2017. And of course, the big event around the circuit. Not necessarily around the GP circuit, but the GP circuit does encompass some of it. Of course, the Nürburgring 24 that's existing from 1970 to now. Apologies about some of the issues that we're having at the moment, though. We are having some issues with the stream. Of course, we'll try and sort this as best as we can. But we're waiting to see what we can see in terms of a lap. Once again, apologies about some of the issues that we might be experiencing. Of course, I'm keeping an eye on the chat as they stand. So if you want to show who you're supporting, make sure you do so by shouting out your favorite drivers, whether that be on the YouTube platform, or specifically either on YouTube or on the Twitch feed. So we're just waiting to see what we can do at this moment as it stands. So far, though, it has been a bit less eventful, but we'll keep an eye on this at the moment. Of course, we are starting to get a little bit of feed here, so it is possible that we might have gotten things sorted, but I'll just turn around and just wait and see how this all goes. And commentator's curse there by the looks of it. But we'll wait to see what we've got at the moment. So at this moment, we're just hopping in and out at this time. So once again, major apologies for some of the issues. So I guess for us, while we wait to try and sort out some of the problems that we do have at the moment with the feed, of course, we'll talk a little bit about the season so far. So currently at this moment, we've had two rounds so far if you've only just gotten into the series. So specifically, we've had two races, the Watkins Glen and Monza. Watkins Glen, of course, first round of the season, we had two splits, which were won by TBS Girl 121 and Gears Corona in split 1 and split 2. And then in Monza, we had Tulipix with an incredibly dominant win coming out, joining the way. Of course, podium split between multiple different drivers. We've had multiple different podium sitters all over. Of course, in the Glen, you had TBS Girl 121, Sandrita KR, and Lightspeed making up the split 1 podium, with Gears Corona, Annalise Wright, and Asher Silva in split 2. And in Monza, of course, Tulipix, FR Girl Sean, and Gears Corona once again ending up on the podium. So we'll keep an eye on this at the moment, and right now, we're definitely seeing consistency being a massive contributor to the points. I mentioned earlier some names so far. Of course, TBS Girl, who won split 1 in the Glen, was one of the critical leaders of this. Was one of the major success stories so far of the season. Split 1, of course, at the Glen race meant almost maximum points there for TBS Girl. And of course, while not necessarily getting onto the podium at Monza, did benefit from the fact of a little bit of carnage to finish P4 and to solidify a solid points position. And then at that point, it worked out really well. In terms of FR Girl Sean at the moment, though, we've got a ton of in terms of Girl Sean at the moment, currently sitting in second. Didn't get onto the podium in race 1, but had a really strong race at the Glen, but did have a relatively decent race at Monza, so creating a gap of about 7 points in the championship at the top of the grid going into this race, and the other 2 rounds are yet to come. Keep an eye, though, on Gears Corona, though, of course, currently on 69 points at this moment. Of course, we saw one split 2 race 1, and then obviously at the Glen, And of course, race 2 at Monza, we got to see Gisgrona go through the carnage and recover to third on the podium, the third step of the podium. Of course, apologies about some of the issues that we're waiting for. We're trying to get things sorted out at the moment, and hopefully we can get some of the technical issues sorted out. But I do want to hear what's going on with all you all in the chat. Of course, I just want to see who people are supporting right now. If you want to chuck in the chats, whether that's on Twitch and YouTube, I'm keeping an eye out at the moment. If you want to message in the chat exactly who you're supporting, I would love to see who you're wanting to shout out so far. It looks like we do have a feed at the moment, so we'll do a lap here. So just see the checkered flag. So we'll have a look and see what's happening so far. Apologies so far. It looks like at this moment we are going to see a grid consisting of Gisgrona, who set the fastest lap, with Tulipix starting P2, so a really strong front row here. Asher Silver's had a really good run here in P3, with Girl Sean second place position so far. We'll keep an eye on, obviously, as the times fall. But the qualifying results so far will be keep an eye on the way that this all pans out at the moment. We'll obviously show you the full results, but it does look like at this moment, as the cars slowly come to a roll to the end of their final laps, it does look like we are going to see a pretty decently strong front row here. Unlike Monza, though, I will say, you probably won't see the same level of carnage going into the first lap, especially. But of course, you do have a corner where there is ultimately potential intent to dive. Of course, we're talking about turn 1, named after the tire brand Yokohama, the Yokohama S. So there is a possibility here that we could see some interesting chaos here, or some exciting overtakes, but we'll wait to see how things progress. Of course, 12 drivers here tonight. We're supposed to have 13. Unfortunately, one driver was unable to make it due to other commitments, so we are here with a 12 driver grid here tonight. It's a 50-lap race, if you don't know. Of course, if the results stay the same, which it looks like it will do, a point will go to Gisgrona for finishing on pole. Of course, Gisgrona on pole, 2:03.096, the pole lap time. Tulipix not far behind them, will start on the second on the grid. The second row will consist of Asher Silver and FR Girl Sean. Third row, Annalise Riot and TBS Girl 21, the championship leader. Sharon Fly and Lightspeed will be on the fourth row. We'll move to the next section. Of course, the fifth and sixth rows will consist of Orma Ali Lamas in P9 and Yukino Suzuka, who's joining us. Of course, Michael Plug, who races in the iRacing series, has joined us to see what they can do here. Sarah Hawkey and Liberal Chaos will back up the rest of the grid. We'll move, of course, to get ready, as everything is at the moment. For those that obviously want to introduce, or those that want to show your support, if in the chat you want to make sure you show who you predict or who you want to win this race, make sure that you share it with us, and I'd love to see all of that as the race goes on. So this 5.2 kilometer circuit is going to be host to this race. Of course, it is legendary. Ultimately, it might not have the prestige of its bigger brothers. Bigger brothers, of course, like I mentioned, the Nordschleifer and the Schutzschleifer, but it does have a legendary status in its own right, especially the GP circuit, which is ultimately just legendary. It's played host to so much. It's been home to so much, and it really is a circuit of absolute legendary proportion. It's beloved by many drivers from all over, whether it be open wheel, closed cockpit, GT or GT, endurance, sprint, wherever, it really is something special. So we're waiting to see as we get ready for the grid so far. And we are here on the grid at the moment, and we're getting ready for the green lights to go out here. They're flashing here from Gibbs Grona and Tula Pix on the front row of the grid. We'll go 1 red light, 2, 3, 4, and it's green, and it's a great start there from Gibbs Grona heading into turn 1. Tula Pix a bit bogged down there by it. It was already down 4 tenths. There's a battle between the two USTs, United Sim Team cars. Asher Silva, oh, this is exactly what I said would possibly happen. Carnage going into the Yokohama S. Of course, that's turn 1. Heading through turn 2 and turn 3. This is the Mercedes-Benz arena section. And we'll wait to see what happens here. Tulipix manages to hold on, but this has benefited Lightspeed, of course, a podium finisher in race 1. Didn't have anywhere near as much luck, but here's the championship leader who's benefited from the carnage as well. A bit of bumping there between TBS Girl and Asher Silva. Looks like potentially rubber banding at the moment, so it does look like that might have been a little bit unlucky there. But TBS Girl is currently in P6, is going to try and chase down Asher Silva. Gibbs Grona, though, is currently leading the way and pretty comfortably right now. I did say these two are absolutely electric so far. I mean, Tulipix, of course, had that race when it looks like a penalty for Tulipix behind as well. So potentially, yes, it's a 1-second penalty there for Tulipix, which is going to have to be served a bit later on around the line, of course. We're heading through the Michael Schumacher S's, named, of course, after the 7-time Formula 1 world champion. So we'll wait to see when this needs to be served on this track. I'm expecting it probably to come a little bit later as they head through the Warsteiner curve, and they're serving the penalty now. Tulipix serves the penalty and drops a bit further back on Gibbs Grona into the clutches of Lightspeed. And of course, we're heading through into the NGK chicane, into the second section. Oh, a bit of a collision there, and further collision. And we'll just wait and see how this all goes, but it does look like Lightspeed has ultimately been caught up in all of that. TBS Girl there. A lot of bumping and running so far. Maybe not the best scenario here for a lot of drivers, and it looks like Lightspeed has been absolutely left there from 3rd to 6th in the section of a couple of corners. There's a battle here between Sarah Hawke and Sharon Fly. Lightspeed right now, we do know that Lightspeed in this 50-minute race, and Sharon is all over the place. I think I can't tell whether that was a bit of rubber banding or just a really slow exit to the corner. Looks like a ton of problems. Asher Silva ending up going wide there, heading around the arena. So we'll wait to see what happens. It looks like potentially some damage for possibly damage for Lightspeed for Sarah Hawke. I think one of the group potentially has damage. TBS Girl, though, the championship leader, this has not been anything but beneficial to TBS Girl so far. Currently, of course, doing incredibly well in terms of the points standing, and this helps significantly because Girl Sean, who's the nearest competitor, with 7 points behind in the championship, is all the way down in P10 at the moment. So really is something to watch out for. So we'll keep an eye as this goes on and how this progresses. Gibbs Grona, though, is leading the way with Tulipix in 2nd, TBS Girl P3, Annalise Wright in P4, under pressure by the looks of it. Ooh, a wide turn there from Ellen Lamas. We've got Lightspeed, though, in P6. We know Lightspeed is probably going to do a long one-stop strategy, so we'll keep an eye and see what strategy impact this has on this race. Sharon Fly had a really good race at Monza. Of course, as the race went on, it just suddenly became a bit of a challenge to keep with the pack. But credit where credit was due. Sharon did an incredible job and is looking to try and benefit from some of the carnage here. Gibbs Grona, of course, fastest lap of the race at 2.03634. Should that stay the same, a penalty there from Sharon Fly, a 5-10 penalty. but should that stay the same, Gizagrona will also get a point for fastest lap. Of course, there's still plenty of race to run, different strategies to play out, tyre temperatures and specifically tyre types that could ultimately make that one a bit of a change. But so far, Gizagrona is making a massive launch here towards title contention. Currently about 15 to 18 points behind. So not ridiculously too far. So this here would be beneficial, but with TBS Girl being in P3 at the moment on the third step of the podium, it will ultimately negate a lot of any benefit that Gizagrona will get. Of course, Tulipix is wanting to try and catch back up and see what impact Tulipix can make. Of course, get Tulipix in race 1, and that's a big reason why you didn't necessarily see the dominant race winner at Monza up there in terms of the championship standings, just purely because last week was the first race that Tulipix took part in. It was an incredibly strong race for Tulipix, but ultimately, as is life really with this one, but we'll wait to see what Tulipix can do in terms of recovery, to see how high she can perform in terms of the overall championship. Of course, 2 more races after this, so there's still plenty of chance here for different drivers to get involved. TBS Girl right now and that Aston Martin right now looking pretty strong. A bit of a distance behind, 4.1 seconds behind Tulipix. So you can see right now it's all about consistency here. It's going to be all about consistency. TBS Girl's going to want to try and keep the gaps sensible, not create any trouble, make points, earn decent points here. Because a podium spot here won't lose you a ridiculous amount. Especially with the gap that already exists. 88 points to 69. So, we'll see exactly how this all lays out, but it has looked pretty good here. Of course, Ellie Lamas has had a really good race here as well, as has Annalise Riot. They're both still on the tail fin, of course, of that Aston Martin so far of TBS Girl. So these two right now in those Mazdas looking pretty good so far. A new fastest lap by the looks of it, a 2:03.304 for Gizagrona. So looks like right now stretching the legs of that McLaren so far, Gizagrona. And a penalty there for Sharon Fly, another 5/10 penalty. Is going to have to take that a bit further down, of course, around Avanbergen. Of course, turn 12. So that large straight there will be interesting to watch. Keep an eye on what's going on at the moment. Second in the championship, Girl Sean at the moment as they head through this long turn 7 hairpin. But we'll keep an eye on this, see what can be done here for Girl Sean. Not the best scenario to be in right now. You're currently in second in the championship. You are going to lose ground. And this potentially right here, if this doesn't change or Girl Sean doesn't get a move on, it could potentially be significant because it would invite Gizagrona, Sarah Hawkey and others to get involved. Sarah Hawkey is directly ahead, so making sure you try and finish ahead of Sarah Hawkey would be a good idea. Sharon Fly, of course, ooh, a bit of almost a bump there. I think that was probably avoided just due to the penalty. But this is exactly what we're looking for. These two Ferraris right now are going to go at it. Oh, it looks like going straight there, Sharon Fly. So potentially an issue there for the German driver. Of course, Girl Sean is going to want to make a move here. A bit of a bump there. It's almost NASCAR-esque, trying to move Sarah Hawkey out the way. Doesn't really work, and ultimately it does mean that that Sarah Hawkey and that blue Ferrari is going to come past the line and probably is going to take a massive advantage heading into Yokohama S. So possibly needs to get it a little bit cleaner here. But so far, points are interesting. Of course, Sean Antonia. Keeping an eye on this at the moment. This is probably the closest battle on the circuit right now. Sarah Hawkey and Girl Sean at the moment, heading through the arena section. Of course, named after the historic make and also part owners of the track. So we'll wait to see how this kind of race starts to pan out. We've still got plenty of time here, so a lot can happen, but it really is starting to level out. It's starting to even out quite a bit. So Gibbs Groner, of course, leading the race with Chulapix in second, TBS Girl in third. That's your podium so far. Of course, Annalise Riot and Orma Ellie Lamas in P4 and P5 with Lightspeed in P6 ahead in that Alfa Romeo. Currently on a recovery drive. Sarah Hawkey P7 with Girl Sean who's second in the championship in P8. Sharon flies in the distant background, as you can see there. But you can see Girl Sean is trying to recover. Another bump there. Another bump, but decides to let off. Needs to be careful here, because this definitely could lead to a penalty at some point. Keeping an eye out at the moment, credit where credit is due for the moment. Yukino Suzuka, of course, Micah Plug has done a pretty good job so far, currently up in P10, considering this is a relatively new series and a relatively new game for Micah. So really good to see so far, riding that Mitsubishi Spec up to GT4. Heading through, of course, the Warsteiner curve. Keeping an eye on this at the moment. Sorry, I was incorrect. That was the NGK chicane. On board Vasha Silva. Started well. Qualified well. Unfortunately, trouble throughout the early segments has cost Asher Silva quite significantly. And really, she also pitted for damage as well, which probably won't help in this situation. So unfortunate results there for Asher Silva in that Toyota Supra. Not ideal. Of course, Liberal Chaos, the last of the active drivers in this race, currently P12, bit of a distance behind in P14, and caught up in a lot of that as well. So unfortunate there for the McLaren driver, but unfortunately that's racing, and that's the Nürburgring for you. Of course, we're on board now with Giz Grona leading the way at the moment. Best lap so far, a 2.2. 0.968 was the last lap, and we're looking like we might set another fastest lap here. Really trying to solidify a second point and go for the full run here, but that run out of the corner probably won't help. Giz Grona right now heading through round the final corner. Gonna try and make this a lap faster, but lost time in that last sector, 2:03.185. So not ideal, but to be honest with you, when you're 10 seconds ahead of Chulapix, who's also been incredibly fast, so especially after last week's performance, I mean, you're probably going to take that. No, in fairness, Chulapix is trying to eat into that a little bit, so personally, I would maybe accept the fact you've hit an incredible marker with your fastest lap, and honestly, I just would stay out of trouble here. Just keep that gap, keep maintaining that gap, and I wouldn't necessarily push it, because the more you go off the track, the more likely you're set to lose time as you lose traction, and I think that's where you're going to get bitten if you're Giz Grona and you're facing up against Chulapix. TBS Gull at the moment, P3 at the moment. Penalty here for Annalise Riot. This is going to be detrimental, a significant penalty, a 1.5 second penalty that's going to have to be served. This is going to be great news for Ellie Lamas, with multiple track cuts for Annalise Riot. Ellie Lamas, though, incredibly good news for the Argentinian driver. So we're going to ultimately see an overtake here as they head through the Warsteiner curve a bit later on in the track. Of course, we're only at turn 7 right now, so we'll wait to see the penalty zone, but this is going to probably and most likely promote Ellie Lamas up to P4. So once again, continued success here for Ellie Lamas, really repping well in that Mazda. Continuing to see how things go as the race goes on. Penalty should be served now, so that car is going to be slowed down, and that's going to be a significant slowdown there.
And yeah, as you can see, Ellie Lamas takes the spot as Annalise loses speed on that large straight there, where you're constantly pushing your foot to the floor. So any loss of speed there really will bite you. And it's dropped Annalise Riot almost a second behind. So not great. So now you have to make it back here, Annalise. And the truth is, you have to keep it clean as well. Keep it between the white lines and avoid trouble, because you can't afford another penalty like that, or you could wish that P4 goodbye for this race at least. Of course, at the moment, Girl Sean at the moment second in the championship, not able to make inroads. Unfortunately, has not made the inroads that she would have wanted on Sarah Hawkey after that earlier battle between the two Ferraris. However, it's not out the realm of impossibility here. Is trying to take those turns late. You can see the late braking from the Dutch driver. So not a bad run, though. In fairness, you would probably think or want to have more pace, or to at least have gotten past Sarah Hawkey to really start making inroads with the drivers ahead, especially if they start to battle or they start getting penalties. But so far, not to be for Girl Sean, the second place driver in the championship. But I think at this point, you just have to take what you can get, especially with your key rivals in the top 3 positions right now. Of course, TBS Girl is going to have a massive benefit, is going to have a massive jump in points in comparison to yourself. Of course, outside of that, looking at some of the other names, of course, looks like an issue for Ellie Lamas, which means commentator's curse. Unfortunately, I talked so positively about Ellie there, and unfortunately just caught incredibly unlucky. And that is ultimately a DQ, but this does benefit Girl Sean, this does benefit Sarah Hawkey. But the battle between those two, considering that they're separated by about 15 points in their own right, is going to be important. You want to try and finish ahead of the drivers that could potentially creep up on you, especially as the other races go. So we'll wait to see how things progress here for the other drivers. It has been a relatively simple race after the early issues, after the early incidents, after the early periods of time. It has not been ideal, but it really has been something interesting to watch. We'll keep an eye on there. It's Girl Sean at the moment, and currently fighting with Sarah Hawkey, so the gap is starting to come down. But here, unlike earlier where you had a lot of bouncing and battling between the two, you're gonna have to accept here that you're gonna have to do this cleanly here, because a lot of the bumping didn't work earlier. Sharon Fly in the background with a 5-10 penalty. So we'll keep an eye on how that one goes as the race really starts to progress. So at this moment, we'll watch to see how this all goes. But Girl Sean is currently on the outside, heading into the hairpin here at turn 7. Is not going to get the traction here, but possibly might get the better exit, or the better traction coming out the exit, going so wide. And it does look like that is the case. But Sarah Hawkey is now having to play the defensive game. Girl Sean is here. Of course, Sharon flies in the background, but we are going to see Sharon serve a penalty relatively shortly. The slowdown is coming, but still looks like Sharon's going to try and make a diving move there. Interesting. Possibly trying to keep the drivers ahead as close as possible. But the penalty is going to be about to be served here for Sharon. As you can see, it's now going to drop. So not ideal, but I think possibly a relatively smart strategic move there. Of course, for the positive strategic move there for Sharon. And of course, with Sharon there, we're going to see a really positive movement there
for the German driver. And looks like a bit more bumping here, of course, from FR Girl Sean and Sarah Hawkey at the moment. Currently drag racing side by side, heading down the main straight, heading into turn 1, into Yokohama. Looks like Sarah Hawkey is going to, on this occasion, is going to be beaten out by that inside corner. The inside corner works here for Girl Sean. Girl Sean is through. And of course, P2 in the championship is now going to start trying to make some inroads here. Try and cut off the gap and the points lost in comparison to the other key contender here, TBS Girl. But Sarah Hawkey, though, is not going to want to take this one lying down. So keep an eye on this and watch this space. Want to see what this other Ferrari does, considering Sarah Hawkey's only a P4 in the championship, isn't ridiculously too far away, so it's going to want some positive performance here. So we're just keeping an eye out at this time. Has been a relatively simple race for some, a bit more of a complex race for others, and really just is an interesting battle to watch. Of course, the front three have really been consistent all day. From the early periods of this race, the two drivers on the front of the grid, on the front row, currently sitting P1, P2. TBS Girl, P3 after a good recovery. So of course that does help quite significantly. And you can see Tulipix now coming into the pit lane. That's going to be the mandatory stop there, of course, for the. You see spots of rain as well, from what I'm being told in my ear. So possibly an interesting thing here. Now, of course, as we know, the other series we run, iRacing, rain is coming, but rain is not something that we've ever encountered, of course, as the system doesn't yet exist. It is coming in Season 2 of iRacing, but in GT7, it's been built into this game fully for many years, so rain here is going to be a factor. See what Tulipix comes out on, and ultimately this will be interesting. What will the strategic call be here? Will this be the kind of situation where rain tyres or putting on wet weather tyres could be a massive, massive, massive benefit? The move made by Tulipix could be significant, especially if the weather continues to change and the track starts to get even wetter. It looks like cars are already struggling. Of course, that's Liberal Chaos there, a lapped car with 3 seconds worth of penalties there. Sarah Hawkey, of course, is going to try and chase down. Tulipix here. Looks like Girl Sean has taken a very similar idea. So has obviously relinquished the position back to Sarah Hawkey, but looking to maybe take a page out of Tulipix's book to see if they can maximise the position in this race. It does look like some wet weather tyres have been put on that car. So you can start to see the environment really start to get wetter and wetter and wetter and wetter. So it really is getting just, what else can you say? It's getting potentially to a situation here where drivers like Tulipix, drivers like Girl Sean, who took the early decision, could be in the spot for something interesting here. The rain could make this one incredibly interesting. It almost seemed just completely closed book, closed case, nothing here to really write home about. But now the weather could be completely throwing a wrench in the races of some of the other drivers. Gears of Corona, though, TBS Girl, Annalise Riot currently in the top 3 positions, but they are yet to pit. I'm yet to see Gears go. I'm yet to see TBS Girl get into the pit. I'm yet to see Annalise Riot. Of course, Sarah Hawkey in P5 is another person that we're waiting to see what happens. Keep it close. Keep an eye on this at the moment. Will we see a move here for Gears of Corona? Will we see a move into the pit lane? It's possible, but it does look like having to take these corners. These corners are starting to get really damp, so you start to see the car
start to skid and you're just losing traction, already a second down, the weather is really starting to have an impact here. As you can see, of course, windscreen wipers going. But this might have been a stroke of genius here for Tulipix, because this might be the thing, the neutralizer, that really brings Tulipix back into the equation of this race. And it looks like Gizgrone is going to continue out here, in the worsening conditions. So we'll wait and see. This might be something to keep an eye on. Question is, will this stay the same to the point where dry tires can at least last, or will it get worse? It does look like TBS Girl is going to continue staying out as well. You can see around that final corner there is a slight wet line that's developing, dry line that's developing. So, pardon me, so it really is something to watch. Annalise Riot right now is going to make the move. So this here, potentially damage limitation here for Annalise Riot. Tulipix is going to end up back in P3, but you're starting to see that gap come down. Ever so slightly. Sarah Hawkey, though, in P5 at the moment, is going to take P4 from Annalise Riot, but of course yet to pit as well. We're waiting to see what's going on here. So, wanting to see what can be done. Annalise Riot, of course, currently is going to probably come out around P6. That does look to be the case. Possibly P7. Okay, Annalise has put another set of dries on, so that could be interesting. Possibly a normal stop, but it was a medium set. Maybe feeling like the track's not wet enough to go for the mediums, to go for anything more than mediums so far. Not wanting to take the risk. Could be interesting. Sarah Hawkey's in P4. Losing time to Tulipix. Waiting to see what happens here. Doesn't look like Tulipix making the inroads that really would have expected on Gizgrona. TBS Girl, though, is slowly being reeled in. Gizgrona going around another lap. No change. That looked like a bit of rubber banding there, not necessarily loss of control. So it does look like that Gearza is managing to keep that car fast while on dry tyres. So not end of the world. And that was the fastest lap last lap, so certainly isn't affecting her. The choice for Tulipix doesn't look like it's working the same way. TBS Girl has come in. Wait to see what tyre choice they go with. The race is slowly coming to a conclusion here as we're getting closer and closer and closer. But the strategy here could definitely play a factor. This is going to be a one-stop for everyone here. No doubt about it. We'll wait to see what happens. TBS Girl is down into P3, but we'll keep an eye at this moment. Sarah Hawkey's passed, but Sarah Hawkey yet to pit. Lightspeed yet to pit. So we'll keep positive eye here. TBS Girl comes out P5. Exiting the pit lane here, of course, at the GP circuit here at the Nürburgring, and right now your points leader is behind, but that pit stop will be interesting to see what impact that has. You can see already gaining significantly on light speed, even on cold tires. So it's not as if this is potentially going to go their way. Looking at it, Yukino Suzuka at the moment, of course, Michael Plug is currently in P7. P4 right now is Lightspeed, but Lightspeed's yet to pit, but that time is just being eaten into so significantly. So it almost seems like, I think there's a mixture of factors here. I think there's a little bit of damage on that Alpha, and I think the weather is not really playing ball with that Alpha Romeo, and I just also think the TBS Girl is incredibly fast also. So we'll keep an eye on how that one goes, as that one could be closing up quite significantly, but right now Sarah Hawkey is not doing too badly on those used tyres, not really seeing the need to come in quite yet. Does have to come in. Ultimately, a mandatory stop is required during this race. So does still have to come in, so cannot see this one out until the end of the race. But it is interesting nonetheless to see what can happen here. So we're waiting to see how this race starts to progress. It did look like Tulipix might have had a stroke of genius, but it does seem that it hasn't gotten wet enough for it to really have mattered, for it to have really have impacted the race significantly. It has done, and you can start to see that the gap loss here between TBS Girl and Lightspeed isn't as significant as it was earlier on. So it looks like potentially conditions not really worsening for the Alpha. Though in fairness, I say that, and takes him out to the curb there, and quite significant cut there. Waiting to see how this all goes. We've got around 20 minutes left of this race. And it really is, it's a question mark. It does look like Gizgrona is probably going to win this race. Odds are, considering the pace that the Gears has put in. But anything can happen. Anything is possible. And to be quite truthful, you never know in this series. It really has been a positive run here, of course, for Lightspeed though. Of course, yet to pit. Sarah Hawkey yet to pit as well. So these positions probably are definitely not final, but positive nonetheless. Lightspeed in P4 right now, trying to close that gap down to 5/10. And it's just waiting to see. It does look like Sarah Hawkey's getting better exits coming out of those corners, whereas Lightspeed is gaining on the straights. So as it stands, Lightspeed is now starting to get closer. 271, 1/10, not enough. Heading around the final corner, gonna try and size herself up for the next straight. Heading into turn one. It'll be interesting to see how this goes. Sarah Hawkey keeping a pretty solid line here, not compromising, not moving, not worrying, just staying out of trouble. That Ferrari goes into turn one with the advantage. Italian manufacturer versus Italian manufacturer. First blood still to the Ferrari, but it does look like a move here for Lightspeed on the inside, heading through the arena section. Lightspeed at this moment in P3, but taking a very shallow entrance there, getting away with it, and it does look like Lightspeed is going to get through. No, here we go, there's a cut. 5/10, gonna have to give that position back, and this invites TBS Girl back into this. As you can see, the currently the championship leader at the moment is currently making gains, now 3/10 behind, so not a bad run here. Of course, for TBS Girl is probably going to get P3 back on this pace and pace alone, but what else can you say? Really has been something strong and effective here. As we keep going, we are going to see this grid start to change and change and change. Of course, Lightspeed is going to have to start taking the slow down after this corner, after heading through the Warsteiner curve. Now here turn 11. So he's going to have to take the penalty now, heading for Avan. And that penalty there is going to allow Sarah Hawkey back through. Not a significant loss there for Lightspeed, but has to do this move with between the white lines, and almost does immediately. An incredibly strong corner there from Lightspeed back up to P3, but for how much longer is the question. These two have yet to pit. Like I said, you've got about nearly 15 minutes left of this race. TBS Girl breathing down their neck, running incredibly strong so far, looking like a solid podium position here for the championship leader. But once again, a battle between the two Italian make cars here. Once again, that's Lightspeed on the outside there with Sarah Hawkey on the in, not getting much there. Lightspeed succeeding there in keeping the position. Waiting to see how this all progresses. Sarah Hawkey though, P4 at this moment, trying to make inroads. Can't. He's trying to do this right, but can't. This is invited TBS Girl in right now. So, of course, championship leader, as I've already mentioned, currently P5 at the moment, is already gaining a lap by lap by lap by lap, and is now in this section here. Of course, Gizgrona now in the pits. So, looking like right now, this is going to be a strong period of time here for Gizgrona. I don't think Tulipix has really made the inroads you would have needed to make a challenge for the win, as they head, of course, look on board, of course, with TBS Gold at the moment, heading for turn 7. Now, that battle there for Sarah Hawkey has meant that it's backed her into TBS Girl. TBS Girl's going to try and make a move. The Aston's going on the outside here, looking much, much, much faster. Though in fairness, they're going to go side by side, heading into turn 10. It looks like TBS Girl's going to make the move, and a very clean move there. Brilliant job there from TBS Girl. Up to P4. Now is going to have to battle Lightspeed ahead. As you can see, lap traffic there. Of course, that's liberal chaos there. TBS Girl right now P4. P3 on this pace. If you don't mind, of course, Lightspeed and Sarah Hawkey have yet to pit. So it is pretty much on Delta. It is going to be TBS Girl who's going to go away. You can see Lightspeed now in the pit. So yes, exactly what I said, P3. And this is going to be interesting. Of course, they were the longest ones. They were the ones that were still yet to pit. Strategy differences here haven't quite made the inroads or the impact that they would have wanted. Not great, not the best scenario, but still making it work nonetheless. It's TBS Girl at the moment in P3, 21 seconds ahead, and is starting to get... It's the pace between TBS Girl and Tulipix is fluctuating, but it's not really to a level that I would see a major move happening as this race progresses. Tulipix is 17 seconds behind. I tend to think that no matter how fast Tulipix is, I think Gearza has planned this one out to perfection. I think it just happens that a bit of a risky call with the early pit stop has not panned out the way that Tulipix would have wanted. TBS Girl looks like P3. Weather definitely did cause a bit of a shuffle, but the top 3 look to be unaffected. Sharon Fly, of course, on the verge of the top 10. Asher Silver right now in P9 as it stands. So the British driver versus the German driver so far. Wait to see how these two go. It's the Supra and the McLaren going up against each other. I think that is Gizgrona in the background. No, that's TBS Girl in the background. So the currently in P3, so he's going to have to give way, both of these drivers, with that blue flag. You see the blue flag being indicated to both of those, both the drivers ahead. So wait to see a smart place here. Tulipix has come into the pit lane. So it was decided here that it was just worth taking the loss here. You're not going to get up on Gizgrona, so you've got rain. We have got rain, and everyone's coming in. Gizgrona, of course, has yet to pit. So this here is massive. This is absolutely massive. If we've got rain, and this is significant rain, we could see a significant time loss here. So massive, massive, massive heading into the final 10 minutes of this race. Looks like Tulipix is on inters. So this is the risk play here. This is the risk play. Will other TBS Girl is on wets. So Tulipix on inters, TBS Girls are a girl on wets. So this here really is going to be an interesting battle of strategy here. Looking like Sarah's on wets as well. Annalise on wets. Tulipix has gone into, so Tulipix has decided to do something different. Everyone else has gone to wet. Gearza is now going to come into the pit lane. I'm pretty sure. I would be very surprised if Gearza stays out on dry tyres here. But this does have a massive impact on this race. The question is what can Tulipix do? Ooh, I tell you what, that car is struggling to make it around. And there's the pit stop. The leader having to come in again. Could be interesting. I think probably has avoided some of the carnage here, but this will ultimately allow Tulipix a little bit of breathing room here if those inters were the right call. I can see Micah Plug is on wet, so has managed to benefit there from the late pit stop because of the rain. So it really has been an interesting battle here. It looks like Gearza is probably going to go, and it does look like Gearza is going to go on wet. And it does look like maybe this one is pretty much a foregone race. I think, unfortunately, Tulipix is on the wrong tyres and has just gone wide. Now, this is interesting. While a race win definitely is now no longer on the cards for Tulipix, this does ultimately, with the struggles in those tyres, this does ultimately put Tulipix square in the sights of TBS Girl. Because TBS Girl is on wet tyres, seeming to be the right tyre here. The inters possibly not providing the same level of grip and straight line speed really needed right now. TBS Girl will keep seeing how this gap seems to we'll see how this gap seems to be impacted with the tyre difference. But it does look like Tulipix has found something, but it does seem like a bit of a risk-reward kind of situation here. Lightspeed right now, currently in P5 as it stands, looking to make up positions here on Sarah Hawkey. Another person that will that ultimately will be interesting to see if they can make a contest of others. Of course, will gain positions in the championship should the results stay the same. Of course, will jump Sharon Fly, Tanakitas, Calavera. So, to be honest with you, and ultimately made some inroads into gaining a little bit into Sarah Hawkey, though not by much. All taking the rubber there, Lightspeed. Those tyres, these cars are sliding around the place. It's almost like oh, close. Has to take to the grass. Oh gosh, this is like watching like deers on ice skates. And Sarah Hawkey's off. Sarah Hawkey's off. So Lightspeed has gone through. I think this is too wet for wet. I mean, what else can you say? This is torrential by the looks of it. It's benefited Lightspeed in the end, a massive benefit here, and of course, is going to gain even more. But I tell you what, how Tulipix is keeping it together on those inters, I do not know, because everyone else is struggling on the wet. I guess that's the answer. TBS Girl not really making the inroads because even the wets are struggling. But it does look like Gears of Grona isn't isn't running away with this like I expected. I expected them to. Watch this space. That gap is slowly coming down, even though it jumps back up as, of course, they weave through the corners. It really does seem like Gearza is struggling. That weaving, that's not rubber banding. That is the car really struggling to keep the grip. I wonder if it's the temperatures of those tyres just not really able to get up to temperature. So it really is like running on skates, especially when it's trying to displace water. Trying to keep things going here. Tulipix, though, not, of course, making the inroads needed. If I'm Gearza here, I would accept the fact you go, ooh, another weave heading into turn 7, has to overcorrect the steering wheel. Here heading through the hairpin. Just a kick. It really does seem like Gearza is just nurse this one home. You've got space, you've got time. Allow Tulipix to eat into that gap. Allow Tulipix to eat into that gap, because right now it's safer to allow that gap to be eaten into with 5 minutes, almost 5 minutes left of this race, than allow yourself to make a mistake trying to chase something here, and Tulipix ends up picking up the pieces. Gulshawn is struggling. Gears a Groner struggling. Everyone is struggling right now. Those tyres really not paying dividends for everyone. Even though it's the right choice, it isn't making their job any easier. Mind you, I would say if you were out on dries at this point, you probably would be all over the track, so at least this gives them a modicum of stability. Sarah Hawkey, though, is in P6 at the moment, down one position again, so this will benefit, of course, Lightspeed in P4. Of course, that is obviously going to add, is going to give more of a points differential there between the two, so could make that gap closer in the championship. TBS Girl trying to make time on Tulipix, but can't seem to make any time back. I think possibly a little too late in terms of the wet weather, but right now the weather conditions look to have caught out almost everyone, so it is possible that one of these drivers up towards the top of the grid, top of the field right now, could end up in trouble. And if so, watch how this starts to really go. It really has been something interesting. That McLaren is struggling so far. It doesn't look like the Mazdas have benefited from the wet weather. That I will say. That car does seem to be a lot more stable. I personally think if Tulipix was on the wets, I honestly think that Tulipix would probably be making significant inroads right now with the way those Mazdas are driving in the wet. Sarah Hawkey, though, in that Ferrari is trying to do whatever she can in P6 to try and limit the points differential, the points gap with Lightspeed. But it does look like Annalise Wright in that Mazda will ultimately be trying to change the dynamic of this. It's going to try and go for the best results. You know, at the end of the day, you've got to win the races, or you've got to beat the drivers in front of you. And Sarah needs to do that, taking an incredibly wide line here, picking up rubber, picking up the marbles from the left-hand side of the track from the outside. So really has been a bit of a nerve-wracking one there. It really has been a bit of a nerve-wracking one. Looks like Annalise Riot is getting the better of that car right now. Pace differential is not massive, so there is a chance here that there is still a move to be made here for Sarah Hawkey, though in fairness, a move like that is possible when Annalise Riot starts to struggle, and it looks like side by side, don't drift, hopefully the cars don't drift, and it does, and Annalise Riot goes into the marbles, so this isn't going to benefit Annalise here, picking up extra rubber. But wow, it really is a tough race to go with so far. I can't say any more than this. I think, to be honest with you, 48 minutes right now. It looks like this race is going to come to a very soon end. It looks like the Asher Silver and that's Tulipix there making inroads, further inroads. It's just not worked out well for Tulipix here. Tulipix is really struggling on those intermediates. Looks like it was the wrong call. It was a risky call. It was a call nonetheless. But unfortunately for Tulipix, the rain continued to get heavier and heavier and heavier. And those inters just could not displace the water that's on that circuit. And so the wet tyre drivers got the call right here. Unfortunate for Tulipix, but right now does have a good enough gap to survive and see out P2. P3, of course, for TBS Girl as it stands, looks to be well on the cards. Sarah Hawkey's now ahead of Annalise, is still ahead of Annalise Riot after that earlier move. So wait to see what Annalise can do. They're both, everyone else is on wets though. Everyone else is on wets. This looks to probably be the last lap so far. Looks to be the last lap. And oh, that's a big one. That was a big one. And Gears of Corona drifting that car. Drifting that car for all it's worth. Jeez, that was not simple. That was not simple in any way, shape, or form. That was not simple. That was not simple. Dear, oh dear. It does look like Gears is going to get away with this, though. But drifting once again, going around the final corner. Making this seem like a drift race, but it is a win for Gears of Corona here at the Nürburgring. Tulipix will come home second. Bold strategy call, but strategy call did not pan out or have the same level of success as would have wanted. However, for Tulipix, I don't really think that matters. I think, to be honest with you, the fact you've seen this home P2, you've not lost anything, you've not gained anything. To be honest with you, I'd say that's probably a job well done. And it does look like Tulipix is going to come home 18 seconds ahead of TBS Girl, the championship leader in P3. Asha Silva is going to go past the line, is going to finish P8. So wait to see TBS Girl. TBS Girl, the last podium member of the podium, 21 seconds ahead of Lightspeed. I think this is all said and done here. Podium here for the championship leader as well. A solid drive nonetheless. Unfortunately here for Girl Sean, the second place finisher probably will not be second place for much longer. That result there probably creating a bit of a nightmare scenario. But seeing it home to P9. Lightspeed here, just off the podium. I'd say, considering the carnage this car, that Alpha, went through this race, I think that's a pretty good result. Sarah Hawkey will see this out P5. Yep, so Sarah Hawkey will see this out P5 with Annalise Wright in P6. Damage limitation there, Sarah Hawkey, who will not lose that much on, of course, will not lose that much, but Gears Corona wins. Second win of the season, first win in Split 1 of the year. Of course, one Split 2 at Watkins Glen. Of course, the results as it stands, Gears Corona, of course, winning that race with Tulipix in second, and your podium finished off by TBS Girl 21, your championship leader in P3. Lightspeed in P4 with Sarah Hawkey in P5. Annalise Riot in P6, Yukino Suzuka in P7, Asha Silva in P8. And the fastest lap point as well will go to Gears Corona, so it's a full sweep for this race as well. So 2 additional points on top of the points for the race win. So really was a successful weekend for Gears Corona. Girl Sean, of course, in P9, with Sharon Fly finishing up the top 10. P11 is Liberal Chaos, and of course Ellie Lamas running incredibly well until a disconnect earlier in the race. So we'll look to get some interviews in here. So we'll watch. We'll see if we can get some people in. We'll start off with most likely TBS Girl, of course, your championship leader and your third place finisher. Jenny, can you hear me?
Yes.
How did that feel?
That was great. Honestly, I love the rain. A little bit of chaos, I bet, for people who were closer together. I had a big gap in front of and behind me once that rain hit, so I didn't really get to see that kind of battling. But honestly, I love the rain. It just throws in an equalizer, I think, and a fun factor to the race. So I was really happy with P3.
Well, it seems like you're the consistency queen at the moment, of course. Race win in Split 1 at the Glen, P4 just off the podium last week, P3 here. You're still going to lead this championship by a bit of a margin at the moment. I guess for you, how important is that consistency for you?
Yeah, I think that's everything for me, honestly, because obviously, as you could see, the top two are just in qualifying even. I think Griza had about 2.4 seconds, I believe, faster lap than I did, and Tulipix was up there probably pushing 2 seconds as well. So, they are definitely fast ladies. So, yeah, I'm just hoping to keep that consistency going through the race. Even though I may not be the fastest on the track, I think that I just try to really channel my consistency to give me what I need for staying up front.
Of course. Well, I mean, other than that, of course, next round is at Spa. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking hopefully there may be rain again, as I know there's only a few tracks on GT7 that have that raining ability. So I think that's a great way to showcase the tracks themselves. But I like Spa personally. Honestly, this track I didn't have much practice on. I usually do the full course layouts of Nürburgring. So Spa I'm more familiar with. So hopefully I can channel that and keep my consistency going.
Of course. Well, thank you very much for your effort today. And I guess if there anyone you want to thank before you head off.
Yep, same as always. Broadcast commentating, thank you, and the host for putting this together, and the admin for keeping it going. So I'm just happy to be here. My team, Flying Fox Racing, again. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to the next round.
Well, thank you very much, Jenny. It's been fantastic. Congrats, of course, on the podium, and hope to see you soon.
Yep, thank you.
Of course, that was TBS Girl 21, Jenny, who is your podium finisher and currently your championship leader, and unofficially, if I've calculated this in my head correctly. We'll move on to second place, Tulipix. Tulipix, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello.
Hello. So, maybe not the race win there, but to be honest with you, considering the gamble you made in the wet, I would say you didn't gain anything, you didn't lose anything. I'd say that's probably a good outcome, to be honest. What was the decision behind the interchange?
So I did some practice in the wet, and what I found is that the inters are actually okay unless the rain gets even more than it was, and there may be like 1 second, 2 seconds slower than the wets, and they also wear out a lot less. So I thought it was worth a try, and it seemed like my speed on them was fine. So yeah, that's why I went with the inters.
Of course. Well, I mean, it was still a bold strategy call in comparison because everyone else went on the wets. But in all honesty with you, like I said, you still had incredible pace. I guess, to be honest with you, was there anything that you wish you could have done to maybe have made the inroads, or did you think that Girza was just kind of on another level this race?
Yeah, she was on another level. I mean, she was incredibly fast, and also, not to make excuses, but I did mention last week the Mazda has a lot of tire wear, being front wheel drive and everything. So my tire wear was always going to be an issue compared to the McLaren, but she was definitely on another level, both in terms of speed and conserving her tires and in the wet. So I think second was probably the best I could do today.
No, of course. Well, I mean, considering that you've got Spa coming up, what are your thoughts about that?
I think, in terms of car at least, Mazda will be a little better at Spa. I think the McLaren is good too, so maybe it'll be pretty even there. I think I like Spa a little bit better. I've also been, it's one of this week's daily races, Spa Group 4, and I have been doing that, so I have a little practice there. So I think it'll be another good race. I don't know if you have wet weather planned again. I know it's definitely can have wet weather at Spa in real life, so maybe there's some wet weather cooked up for Spa next week, but I think it should be an exciting race and looking forward to it.
Of course. Well, no, I mean, other than that, is there anyone you want to say thank you to?
I did some practice with Gurza, so thanks to her. You know, she shouldn't have to do that to maybe show off her lines and strategies. So definitely thanks to that. You know, and again, thank you to everyone for participating, for putting on the race, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, Sheila Pix, I mean, of course, still considering while you've only been to 2 of the races, you've been on the podium both times. So, you know, you definitely have made yourself very well known to everyone in the championship so far. Congrats, of course, on the P2 finish, and I can't wait to see and hopefully get to speak to you again next race.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
And that is your second place finisher, Sheila Pix, of course, who ultimately had an incredible race. Won in Monza, finished P2, so really strong stuff. And finally, of course, we'll have the race winner and completed the clean sweep this weekend. Gears Agrona, race winner, fastest lap, and the pole position points as well. How do you feel about that?
It feels good. Finally getting a race where everything kind of went solid, no bad luck, no contact, getting a clean start at turn 1, and I just got to do my thing. Feels, I don't know, I really enjoyed the combo today. NerdGP wasn't really one of my strongest tracks going into this, but I had a blast. The McLaren feels amazing here. Beautiful car. I'm just happy with the win.
I was about to say, especially later on in that race, that car did decide to turn itself into a bit of a drifter there for a period of time.
Yeah.
How did it feel coping with that?
Oh, I enjoyed it, getting to correct the oversteer from it. To be honest, it was not really mostly the car, it was more just my driving style. I tried to counter the understeer in the rain by just like trying to drift into the corners. So that was mostly on my end, but that car, like, even when it breaks, you can correct it so easily. I love this car, and I'm happy I picked it for the season.
Well, I mean, it definitely has worked out dividends, of course. You won Split 2 at the Glen. You finished on the podium in 3rd place last weekend at Monza. You're now race winner here. I mean, of course, while Jenny definitely leads the way still, you absolutely have made significant inroads in the championship so far. I mean, what are your goals, especially for the next round coming up at Spa?
My goal's another clean sweep, hopefully. I got to make up ground for the start of the season with my bad luck, but hopefully we have enough time. We got 3 more races, I think. Awesome.
Yeah, we've got 3 more races. So, I mean, other than that, to be honest with you, it's all more than possible. You've got plenty more races. You've still got plenty of time to go, and all it takes is a bit of bad luck for one driver, a bit of good luck for you, and it all completely changes and turns the whole championship on its head. But outside of that, I guess, outside of that, is there anyone you want to thank?
I want to thank Miss Sophie for being with me in call today, being my little crew chief. I love you so much, and thanks for joining me. You are awesome and amazing. And yeah.
Well, I mean, congrats, of course, on the race win. Hopefully we get to speak to you again next week at the next round at Spa. But congratulations, of course, on the clean sweep this weekend.
Thank you so much.
No problem. So those were your top 3 finishers, and of course, your overall results here. The top 3 for round 3. Giz Grona in P1, Sheila Pix in P2, and TBS Girl, or Jenny, in P3. Of course, we'll look at the unofficial results so far. Jenny, TBS Girl, still leading the way on 129, but that gap has significantly dropped here. Giz Grona, 121. There's always a chance here. Sean,
dropping back, but not significantly enough to make a massive loss here. Of course, Sarah Hawkey P4, Lightspeed in P5, making up significant ground. That gap, like I said, is something to watch as that's getting smaller. Only a couple points between them. Tulipix is making up ground as well in P6. Watch out for that for Tulipix there. Sharon Fly and Asha Silver, only 1 point between them in 7th and 8th, so keep an eye on that battle. Purple Lambris right there, not been at the last couple of races, so we're yet to see what Annalise, let's yet see what happens, but of course Annalise Riot with 71 so far. Of course, Carl Rivera in P11 with Tanakitas in P12. Ellie Lamas was on the odds for some good points here this weekend. Unfortunately, the disconnect cost a result there. Just Ton, of course, not able to make it this week, but ultimately keep an eye out, see what inroads can be made there. Go Cold P15, Shara PT P16, Sandrita P17, Kristen Bach in P18, Yukino Suzuka in P19, and P20, Zoe at the end of that. Well, I will say more than anything with that original those results. Of course, we've got another race coming up. We've got a couple of races coming up, of course, next weekend. We've got iRacing coming up next weekend on the Saturday. We've also got Gran Turismo 7 on the Sunday, so keep an eye out. Of course, I've of course want to say thank you to the broadcast director, of course Mike Yao of AKE Sports, for all of the effort put in today. Of course, race direction by Sophia Romwin. I'm Jamie Jessica Martin, your commentator. Can't wait to see you again soon for the Screen Speed Winter Cup. Goodbye.